He was earning $100,000 a year, and yet every morning felt heavier than the last. From the outside, his life looked like a success story in progress. Stable job, respected title, predictable future. But internally, something felt deeply misaligned. The number on his paycheck brought comfort, not peace. Security, not freedom. And one thought began to surface more often than he wanted to admit. If this was what making it felt like, why did he still feel trapped? In that discomfort, a quiet realization emerged. Financial independence isn't about how much you earn. It's about how much control you have over your time and decisions. For a long time, he ignored that feeling. After all, walking away from a six-figure salary sounded irresponsible, even ungrateful. He told himself that discomfort was normal, that everyone felt this way, that stability required sacrifice. And yet, every year that passed, the job demanded more of his energy and returned less of his identity. His days became predictable in a way that felt dangerous. Meetings blurred together. Goals were assigned, not chosen. And slowly, without noticing, his ambition narrowed to maintaining what he already had. What he didn't realize at the time was that his mindset was still rooted in dependence. Not financial dependence in the obvious sense. His bills were paid, his lifestyle was comfortable, but psychological dependence. His sense of safety was tied to one source of income, one structure, one permission slip to live. And that dependence quietly shaped his decisions. He avoided risks that didn't come with guarantees. He postponed dreams that couldn't fit neatly into a calendar. He told himself he'd explore freedom later when things felt safer. But safety never arrived. Instead, anxiety changed shape. It became subtle, manageable, almost invisible. The kind of anxiety that shows up as Sunday night tension, as irritation without a clear cause, as the habit of checking the time more often than necessary. Late at night, he would scroll through stories of people who had built lives on their own terms, and a familiar conflict would return, admiration mixed with rationalization. That's not realistic for me. I have responsibilities. I can't afford to mess this up. What followed challenged everything he believed about success. One evening, after another long day that felt oddly empty, he sat alone and asked himself a question he had been avoiding for years. If nothing changed, would he still choose this life in 10 years? The answer came quickly, and it scared him. Because it wasn't no. It was silence. And that silence revealed something uncomfortable. He wasn't choosing this path anymore. He was maintaining it out of fear. There was one realization he only understood much later. A high salary can become a golden cage if it replaces self-leadership. And money wasn't the problem. The mindset was. He had optimized for income before optimizing for autonomy. And that order mattered more than he had ever been taught. If this moment in the story feels familiar, that tension between gratitude and suffocation, pause with me for a second. If you value this kind of honest conversation about money, identity, and freedom, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Not as a favor, but as a way of staying connected to ideas that challenge comfort in the right way. The decision to leave didn't happen overnight. There was no dramatic resignation, no impulsive leap. Instead, there was a long period of internal restructuring. He began to look at his finances differently, not through the lens of how much do I earn, but how dependent am I? He calculated how many months of freedom his savings actually represented. He studied his spending habits, not to cut joy, but to remove unconscious trade-offs. He stopped inflating his lifestyle just because he could. More importantly, he began working on emotional regulation. The job had taught him how to perform, but not how to trust himself without external validation. Letting go of a guaranteed paycheck meant confronting a deeper fear, the fear of being responsible for his own outcomes. No company to blame, no structure to hide behind, just his decisions, compounded over time. The turning point wasn't financial. It was psychological. One day, he noticed that the job no longer felt like an opportunity. It felt like an anchor. Not because it paid too little, but because it demanded his best hours while offering little growth in return. He realized that financial independence wasn't about quitting work. It was about choosing work that didn't require him to trade his future for comfort in the present. When he finally left, the world didn't change. There was no applause, no immediate sense of freedom. In fact, the first weeks were uncomfortable, quiet, uncertain. But beneath the uncertainty was something new. Ownership. Every decision mattered again. Every hour carried weight. And slowly, his confidence stopped coming from titles and started coming from follow-through. Money became more intentional. He learned to respect cash flow, to think long-term, to build systems instead of relying on motivation. Income fluctuated, but his mindset stabilized. He was no longer optimizing for maximum comfort. He was optimizing for resilience and autonomy. And that shift changed how he related to risk, patience, and growth. Looking back, he understood that quitting the job wasn't the boldest move he made. The boldest move was changing how he defined security. True independence wasn't guaranteed income. It was the ability to adapt, decide, and endure without outsourcing responsibility. If this story resonates with you, if you feel that internal pull toward autonomy and long-term control, you can continue exploring these ideas through the psychological materials mentioned in the description and comments, including How to Develop a Millionaire Mindset. Not as a shortcut, but as a way to strengthen the identity required to handle freedom responsibly. And if this channel aligns with how you want to think about money and life, like the video and subscribe quietly, intentionally, as part of the path you're choosing. Because the moment he stopped working for a paycheck and started working for independence, he changed who he was becoming.